Hello and welcome to the Paid Media Lab podcast. My name is James. I'm the content lead here at Lunio, and in this episode, I'll be speaking with Scott Carruthers, who is the head of PPC at Journey Further, a performance marketing agency based in Leeds. Scott has more than 11 years experience running award-winning campaigns for 8-figure brands, including Boots, Marks & Spencer's, Casio, and more. And over the past couple of years, Scott has become one of the leading voices on LinkedIn when it comes to sharing the latest trends and developments from the PPC world. And we've actually included some of Scott's previous commentary and analysis in some Lunio blogs and webinars. So it was great to have an opportunity to sit down with him and get into some of the details of a strategy he's been paying particular attention to in recent months. And that is the concept of choosing the right optimization point for PPC lead gen campaigns across paid search, so that businesses can make the transition from focusing primarily on lead volume to placing a much greater emphasis on lead quality, so that the leads that do come through the door have a much greater chance of converting into revenue. There's a lot of talk in the industry right now about value-based bidding, and in this interview, Scott gets into some of the core foundational principles associated with that strategy, backed up with some very impressive case study results from a campaign he and his team ran for Boots Hearing Care here in the UK. So let's get into the conversation with Scott about how lead gen businesses can drive more revenue by switching to a value-based bidding strategy on paid search. It's great to be speaking with you today because you're someone that I've seen on LinkedIn for quite a while now. You've been sharing lots of useful updates and insights, and we've included some of your commentary in our Lunio blogs and webinars. And I know one of the posts you wrote, which we discussed in a previous webinar with Bob and Miles from PPC Mastery, was your kind of theory about Google's power pair, and it being the first step towards a potentially keywordless future of PPC. So for those listeners that might not be aware, could you very briefly explain what the power pair is and what you think the implications are for the future of search there?
Yeah, of course, yeah. That post seemed to be quite a popular one. It seems to be picked up in quite a few different places, but I think everyone just loves a bit of a conspiracy theory. I should probably start by saying I'm not sure there's not necessarily any truth behind it in that this isn't something that's come from Google. This is just a theory I've applied to what I've seen. But yeah, the power pair is Google's pairing of using Broad Match and Performance Max together. And the theory is that if you were to employ Broad Match more in your account, there's less need for keywords, so you don't have to put as many exact match keywords in there. When Performance Max and your search campaigns work together, the search campaigns will take priority when you have a keyword that exactly matches the search term. And when it doesn't, then Performance Max is allowed to take priority, so Performance Max can start showing. In rolling out that broad match stuff and having less keywords, therefore Performance Max is much more eligible to show showing more situations against more search terms, and therefore Performance Max will naturally take up more spend, naturally become a bigger part of your account, naturally drive better performance. And so I think this is Google's subtle way of getting us to move ourselves away from keywords. So by condensing down the volume of keywords in there, more will subtly match to Performance Max. Performance Max will show more, and you'll move into using Performance Max more than you use in those search campaigns. Yeah, an interesting one. As I say, a few people seem to have picked up on that one. We all love a conspiracy theory in PPC, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's conspiracy theories, but there has been the big antitrust trial going on in the US with Google right now. So obviously we're not going to get into that. We could spend all day talking about the outcomes of that. But yeah, it is very interesting to see just the push for greater and greater levels of automation. And it's not to say that the power pair doesn't work well. I know some people have had great results from it, but it does. You are putting quite a lot of faith in Google there to deliver results, and there's not a lot of granularity that you can have in terms of control. And I know Bob from PPC Mastery was definitely in agreement with your kind of assessment of the situation. On that note, for anyone out there watching or listening who isn't already following Scott on LinkedIn, definitely recommend you do so to catch his thoughts on the latest trends and developments in the industry, and maybe a conspiracy theory here or there sprinkled in for good measure. But for now, we're going to get into the main topic of our conversation for today, which is about value-based bidding and choosing the right optimization point for your PPC campaigns, especially in the context of lead gen. So I thought this was a really interesting point. When we were talking and kind of preparing before this recording, Scott, you brought up this point about optimization points and value-based bidding. Not something that I would have thought of, but can you kick us off by explaining what optimization points in PPC are and why they're so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So the optimization point is exactly what it says on the tin. It's the thing that you are optimizing towards, or the thing that you're asking the machine learning or asking the platform to optimize towards or to get for you. There's probably some differentiation that needs to be made between that and a conversion. So a conversion is an action that's taken on site, whether it be a form fill or a purchase or whatever it may be. An optimization point doesn't necessarily have to be an action taken by the user. You can apply values to it. It could be something, I suppose, theoretical or fictional. It could be something more of a vanity metric. It's whatever you are trying to get the platform to achieve or optimize towards. And the reason that's so important is because it's how you align the machine learning and how you align Google towards your business goals to getting what you want to achieve as a business, as opposed to just ticking a box or doing what Google thinks it should do. So it's about steering the machine, so adding that human element into, say, the machine learning, the AI, the platforms.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because obviously, I'm not a hands-on PPC expert myself, and when you mentioned optimization points, the kind of first thing that came to my mind was, yeah, okay, it's going to be about conversions, but as you just explained your answer, that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. And there's a different ways to approach this. So what would you say are some of the most common mistakes businesses make when it comes to selecting an optimization point to try and steer their campaigns towards?
I think probably lack of alignment with business goals. So you have to understand how those optimization points relate to what it is that you're ultimately trying to achieve as a business. Whether that is leads, whether that's driving more traffic, whatever that may be, it has to align to your ultimate final goal. And a lot of people kind of miss that point. Often people miss it through aiming for things like vanity metrics. So I know I've just mentioned traffic there, and traffic might be a useful goal for you as a business, but for other businesses it might not be. It could just be, we're getting more traffic, so what? Or you're getting more impressions, so what? Those sort of vanity metrics that people often look at. And the other thing is going too far down the funnel. So sort of jumping the gun a bit, rushing to more advanced goals. So for lead gen, for example, looking at qualified leads or sales might not be right for your level of Google Ads optimization. It might be that you don't have enough data to do that, or you don't have a clear conversion path, or your tracking doesn't work to allow for that. People can often jump the gun and just say, we want to optimize this thing that's, way out of reach. So I guess that's going in two different directions there. It's either looking too loosely and looking at those vanity metrics, or going far too deep, and you need to find that sweet spot in between.
Yeah, so it's a kind of, there's a spectrum there, where it's the kind of top level stuff and traffic and clicks. And then, we're getting down to converted leads and, opportunities on the other end. And given that there is this spectrum and different points at which you could place your optimization point along that conversion path, what would be the factors that you would consider to go, okay, this is the point that makes sense for us to aim towards? Like, what would you do to weigh that up?
I think the first instance is understanding if you do have that clear conversion path mapped out. You'd be surprised at how many businesses you get to and they don't actually understand what that full path looks like. Like, how does a lead get qualified? Where does it go to get qualified? How does it then go to get converted or turn into a sale? And actually mapping that out and understanding it and seeing where the different points are, and how you are then feeding that back into the platforms, or how you are reporting on it, is super important. So just an understanding as a business. And I think that's something that's important overall in PPC nowadays, is getting more integrated with businesses and understanding exactly how businesses operate. Other considerations are things like, I mentioned it before, but how much data you have at each stage of the funnel. So if you only get one qualified sale a month, but it's worth a lot of money to your business. It's not enough data to go off for Google Ads to say, let's get more of these. So you need to look at maybe further slightly up that conversion path. So looking at things like leads, as we've mentioned. Whether or not you can pin those different stages of the conversion path to your business goal. So whether it's something that you can definitively say does relate to what you're ultimately trying to achieve. Time to conversion, so how long it takes to qualify a lead. There's so many different points, and that will change completely from business to business to business. So ultimately what you need to do with all of that is to test it. So if you are optimizing towards leads and you think you can move further down the funnel, like you have enough data, your time to conversion isn't that long, test moving further along. You can do that on specific campaigns. You could do that in different ways. There's lots of different ways to test, but ultimately PPC is a channel that can give you really clear results really easily. So even if you've got all of those different factors at play and they all look positive, it might not work for you as a business. You have to test. Interestingly, moving further down that conversion path, I've got a couple of sort of cases where I've struggled with it in the past, I guess. And so this is where sort of that theory type of PPC comes into play and why it's working, why it maybe isn't working. Google advises 30 conversions in 30 days. I think that's still the case. That's the one they've been running with for quite some time. We always say this in PPC, it depends. It's a case-by-case basis. I've seen accounts thrive and succeed where actually there's only been 10 conversions in that 30-day period, presumably because there's loads of user signals that are being given off, so the machine learning can take that and run with it. Similarly, I've seen accounts with loads of conversions, like 50 plus, that it just hasn't worked. It's a case-by-case basis. It depends how risk averse you are as well. But yeah, the threshold that Google advised, and I think is a pretty sensible one, is 30 conversions in 30 days.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now I know you've kind of touched on many aspects of this kind of approach already in some of the answers that you've given, but if we just imagine a scenario where it's lead gen based business, and up until now they've been primarily just focused on, let's just maximize lead volume and let's just get as many leads as we can through the door. And that's what they've been optimizing towards, and that's what they've been structuring their campaigns and account for. And maybe they realize that, okay, a huge number of these leads aren't converting and we're just not getting the business value from running our campaigns in this way. Could you kind of walk us through a process, kind of step by step, of how would you shift that focus from just maximizing lead volume to this value-based bidding approach?
Yeah. So I think there's two different points there. There's one where you can move further down the conversion path and just start optimizing towards a qualified lead. What you need to do there is make sure you've got your proper reporting in place, make sure you've got your proper tracking in place, feed in those qualified leads into the platform, and switch that to be your primary conversion point, so your primary optimization point. The thing you have to be really careful with there is changing over your bidding strategies to optimize towards that new conversion point when you make that switch, because you're going to have a lot more conversions in a lot less conversions in the conversion column that will be being optimized towards, and so you'll need to adjust your targets accordingly. The other element of that is the value-based bidding stuff. So not all leads are created equally, not all qualified leads are created equally. Some will be of greater value, some will be of lesser value. That might be because you have different optimization points that you're working towards. You might have a brochure download or a phone call or a form fill on site, and those might result in different levels of sales to you as a business. You might have tiered offerings, so different price points within that therefore dictate that those are going to be of different values. So in terms of optimizing towards that or changing towards that, again, the same points still stand. You need to make sure that you've got your tracking set up effectively, that you're feeding those values into the platform, and then make that switch. So basically switching from target CPA bidding strategies to target ROAS bidding strategies. So in terms of transitioning from optimizing towards leads to optimizing towards value, what I would do is get an understanding of what those different leads mean to you as a business. So what the values of them are, and that might mean that a phone call is worth twice as much as an on-site form fill, which in itself is worth twice as much as a brochure download or whatever that may be. I'd make sure that those values are being imported into platform so that you've got that being fed in. And then I'd understand exactly what performance or what value is being driven at that stage. And this is where I think a lot of people go wrong in terms of setting a target. They try to set a target based on what they want the machine learning to achieve rather than what it is able to achieve. So again, you need to get those values fed in, understand exactly what it is that is being achieved at the moment when you're optimizing towards conversions, and then make that switch to optimizing towards value.
Yeah. So not setting your expectations crazy high and just saying like, yeah, this is the dream outcome that I want on the value side. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. Like a lot of people start feeling and say a phone call is worth X and therefore my ROAS needs to be this, but that is nowhere near what you're currently achieving, and therefore the machine learner will really struggle to move outside of those boundaries to achieve that. You need to give it a level playing. You need to give it where it currently is, and then move it towards where you want it to be.
You were managing campaigns for Boots Hearing Care, and I know you've got a case study that you created with them, and you used appointment availability and competitor data, and you use that to change conversion values in Google Ads. So could you kind of talk us through that case study and how that worked there?
Yeah, absolutely. I should clarify this by saying this one isn't mine. This is one from Journey Further from the agency. Super talented team working on this one. Not trying to take any credit for this, but it's
very humble.
Yeah, super interesting one that the team developed. So what they did was essentially scraped the availability data from the Boots Hearing Care website to understand when different stores had availability to get your hearing test done, and found out that when there is greater availability, people are more likely to book. So people aren't going to book in for a test in a month's time if the store is fully booked up. They then use this data and also competitive data of a similar vein. So comparing the Boots Hearing Care availability with the availability of competitors. Obviously, if a competitor is available when Boots isn't, then they're likely to go to a competitor and vice versa. Then use this understanding and use this data to set up conversion value rules within Google Ads. So essentially said, if a store has availability, let's say that it's the conversions there are worth twice the value that they currently are, so, or whatever it was based on the conversion rate or the conversion uplift we were expecting to see. And by feeding this into Google Ads, it meant that if leads had availability, the algorithm would go after people in Leeds as opposed to elsewhere. If the Manchester store was fully booked up, we decreased the conversion value, Google Ads would stop sort of bidding in Manchester or stop going after those users and decrease that. But yeah, super interesting case study there. The output being that the team increased the bookings on desired locations by 31%. And decrease the cost of booking by 20%. So it just meant that we were able to route the budget or route the spend through Google Ads to the most effective location, so using it much more effectively.
And sorry, was that all automated, that kind of shift in where the money was being funneled towards? Like that was all, you didn't need to manually kind of, because that would be a bit of a nightmare if it was
yeah, with hundreds of different store locations, it would be an absolute it would be absolute chaos. But yeah, they scraped the availability stuff from the site, built this sort of algorithm that calculated what the conversion rate should be, or what our expected conversion value should be, so the uplift in conversion rate that you would expect to see based on that availability, and then automatically fed that back into Google Ads.
Nice. Really interesting data and great results that they got.
Exactly.
Credit to the team and any involvement that you had in that as well, Scott. Just last question, just in the interest of time before we wrap up. Looking ahead to the future of PPC, and who knows whether we'll end up with a keywordless future of search, TBC on that one. But maybe looking slightly shorter term over the next 12 to 24 months, where do you see PPC optimization going in terms of defining conversion points and leveraging the AI to get to some of those outcomes that you're after?
I just see it becoming more and more advanced. We had a super talented team working on the Boots example, analysing, pulling that data from site, analysing it, figuring out what was going on with the conversion rate or what we needed to happen with conversion. That should become easier. Like, AI should get access to more signals. You look at things like the user signals that Broadmatch uses as opposed to exact and phrase at the moment, and you can see that already coming into play. But I only see that getting more and more advanced. Where yes, we are coming up with a strategy and integrating loads of data points at the moment, but I think AI getting more readily, getting access to that more readily is coming. I think AI is only ever improving. So how it uses that data, what it gets out of it, how it understands those longer term conversion paths, and the signals that are integrated into that. I only see things getting better, more seamless.
I'm naive to something you mentioned in your answer there. Those user signals that are being incorporated into Broadmatch is something that I don't know much about. So could you just maybe explain what's going on there with those additional signals for Broadmatch?
Yeah. So Broadmatch is more advanced in the way that it matches because it looks at things like landing page, user search history and stuff like that, and takes that into consideration when it's doing its matching. That's why Broadmatch works much better with smart bidding than it does with manual bidding, and why you should always pair the two together. Exact match, phrase match don't have access to those previous signals. They're kind of not necessarily dumb matching, but just matching based on the words without the context or without that intent. And Broadmatch just has so many more signals because it's a newer tool. And that's why we're seeing super powerful results from it as well.
Yeah, nice. And as you mentioned, we'd expect as AI continues to get better and better, Broadmatch is likely to follow suit. I know lots of people may not be fans of Broadmatch and whatever, and there can be cases where it can cause inefficient spend, but there are definitely use cases for it, and it's only gonna get better. There's no way that that direction is going to be reversed. So yeah, be interesting to see what plays out over the next couple of years, but we will leave it there for today. And I just want to say thank you so much, Scott, for joining me today. Really interesting strategy and really impressive results that you generated with Boots Hearing Care there. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to mention or let people know about?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much for having me on. It's been great. Love a good chat about PPC. So yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, James.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Scott. And look forward to keeping up with you on LinkedIn, and hopefully one day we'll get to catch up in person. There's a lot of marketing meetup events happening in the north now, so hopefully one day catch you in person. But yeah, thanks again, Scott. Great to speak with you. That's it for this episode of the Paid Media Lab. Thank you for tuning in. If you found it helpful, hit the subscribe button to get the next episode as soon as it's released. Subscribing costs nothing. It only takes a few seconds to do, but it makes a huge difference to us because it enables us to continue booking the best possible guests and delivering you great content. In the meantime, if you're looking for more free guides, tips, and tools, head to lunio.ai and click on the resources tab in the nav bar. And lastly, if you know any other marketers who'd find these strategies helpful, please do tell them about the show, and I'll see you in the next episode.